Hey there, I'm so glad you're here. Today we're going to talk about meal planning and how the heck do you sustain a low carb lifestyle? You know, I get it. You're confused. I was looking for some kind of new things to share on a video. I'm always looking for topics. It's like, all right, what am I going to talk about this week? Well, I started dinking around on the internet and kind of typed in low carb meal plans because that seems to be something that a lot of you ask for. I'm not big on the meal plan situation because I want to teach you how to eat for yourself. I mean, everybody has a different palate. Everybody has a different lifestyle. And if I say eat chicken and broccoli, well, that's not going to fly. I mean, it just doesn't, right? So the meal plan situation, that was very interesting when I actually looked into it online and what's offered out there. I looked at a very, let me say, healthy food magazine, low carb plan, and I was astounded. No wonder you're confused. It had you eating breakfast, snack, lunch, snack, dinner, snack. I mean, if I ate like that, I'd be chubby. There's no way as a menopausal woman that I could enjoy that type of lifestyle. I'd feel awful. And it was, quality food, but high carb. I mean, the carbohydrates in one day was like 150, 130 grams of carbohydrates in a day and only like 80 grams of protein. So no wonder it doesn't work. Anyway, rant over. I'm shocked and a little bit irritated because it's not hard to fashion a daily plan that is super simple and effective. We don't want to be eating low calorie. That doesn't work. We've talked about that endlessly. We want to be eating high protein, not ridiculous protein only. I mean, if you want to do carnivore, all right, see how that works for you. But what I want to offer you as a menopausal woman is to fashion your day in a way that makes you happy, in a way that you feel excited to eat a really quality food meal. If you're eating breakfast, then make sure it's quality carbohydrates along with a good protein source. A lot of us don't eat breakfast, and sometimes that works for you, but the more metabolically stable you are, the easier it is to wait a little bit longer and not eat that first or last meal of the day. You decide, okay? If you're metabolically broken and you don't really have a way of eating and you're all over the place and you've been following the magazines and periodicals and powers that be, you've been following their low calorie, eat often kind of dogma, then you're going to want to kind of take a deep breath and find a better way. All right. Because when I tell you to reduce your carbohydrates to anywhere between 80 and 50 grams a day, and you start tallying up your carbohydrates, some of you panic. And I get it. If you're insulin resistant, if you have insulin resistance and your body isn't used to using stored fat for fuel, and you have a lot of inflammation, then it might take a few weeks to a few months of consistent, high quality, lower carbohydrate, higher protein, higher fat diets to feel like you can do the maybe 2 meals a day or 2 feeding windows a day type of a regimen. So what am I talking about? If you're not metabolically stable and you haven't been doing this for a long time, then you might want to wake up and eat. If you're stressed out, If you've been on vacation, if you've gained 10 pounds this summer, then you do want to start with 3 meals a day. And make sure, maybe you have no carbohydrates with your breakfast. Maybe you do 3 eggs or 2 eggs and some sausage, and a berry or 2, just to kind of throw in a little bit of fresh, right? That works. So then you stop eating after that meal, that first meal. And then you open that feeding window again when you feel hungry. Not snacking, it should be mealtime. It should be closer to noon, 1 o'clock, even 2 o'clock. And maybe you're gonna have a salad with some protein. Well, everybody knows that type of meal. If that's not gonna work for you, then throw in maybe like a low carb tortilla sandwich roll up. You've got maybe 20 grams of carbohydrates to play with in that feeding window. And, look at Carb Manager. Look at the internet to find out a meal with low carb and moderate protein or high protein. Depends on what your appetite tells you is right for you. Maybe that meal is like a chicken salad, a couple scoops of chicken salad and some pickles and carrots and tomatoes and olives. And you know what, you're feeling pretty darn satisfied, and that's still super low carb. The trick is to be able to eat in a way that makes you satisfied enough to maintain and be consistent. Because if you've got, 30 to 50 pounds to lose, you've got a good year of this style of eating. Actually, you've got the rest of your life to make this happen. I have clients who think, okay, I'm just gonna do the diet and then go back to what I like to eat. Well, that never works. I've got people who have kind of decided that they're gonna do what it takes, and they feel so good that they don't want to eat off plan. Or when they do, they're definitely ready to get back on plan because it, first of all, didn't taste that good, and they didn't like the way they feel, and they certainly didn't like the way their clothes felt and their body felt with that junky diet mentality. It's important for you to kind of buy in or decide that you want to make these changes. It also takes time for your metabolism to decide that it's going to be okay. You might really feel lousy for the first week or 2, but that doesn't mean that it's not working, okay? If you're not losing fat, first of all, don't get on the scale every day or twice a day, because that never works. Trust in the process. Understand what you're doing is important for fat loss, okay? And when you are eating maybe 80 to 100 grams of protein in a day, and your carbohydrates are under that, maybe under 80 carbs a day for 2 or 3 weeks at a time, and you start feeling like, all right, I am feeling better. I do have more bandwidth in, I can go longer without eating, then that's a real tool for you and level of understanding to know that healing's happening. Inflammation is leaving the body. You're getting raw materials by way of protein, amino acids, to maintain muscle mass. And you're also able to exercise. You're not exhausted. If you feel like you need an afternoon snack because you're absolutely hungry and you have hunger pains and you can't think of anything else, then maybe you do just a couple of bites of protein, maybe some salami, maybe some olives, maybe some hard-boiled eggs. You know what? The diet's going to be monotonous until you get a little more stable. Lean into monotonous. Plan ahead. Make sure you have on board what you need. But don't feel like you're a failure if you don't get it perfectly. You're not going to. There's going to be a wedding. There's going to be a birthday celebration. There's going to be apricots that ripen on the tree. you know what? Sometimes it's okay just to kind of lean into not being perfect. If that's the case, then the next day you get right back on plan, and don't sweat it. Trust your body, enjoy life, and dive into reality. If you're that person who is more metabolically stable and you have good blood sugar metabolism, and maybe you're just kind of off track because you've been distracted, then maybe you can do a longer fast. Maybe you decide to go 20 hours with no food. If you can do that without binging, okay, if you can do a 20-hour fast, and that's not easy day one. So maybe after a week of a clean, good quality diet with strong feeding windows and plenty of exercise, you can then lean into a longer fast. That's gonna be healing. That's gonna unlock some stored fat. And sometimes being uncomfortable in that 20 to 24-hour fast is just what you need in order to kind of dial in to your tendencies, your habits, your mindset. How are you thinking about food? How are you feeling about yourself? Are you gaining control? With that longer fasted state, especially if you have your electrolytes on board and you have plenty of fluids and you're feeling really successful, I invite you then to plan your next meal with a lot of integrity, okay? You're gonna want to eat maybe protein first, especially if it's like a 20 to 24-hour fast. Then don't start your meal with something frivolous because you've, endured and deprived yourself. No cookies after a fast, okay? The important thing is have a regular meal. If you feel that hungry and you feel like you're out of control, then eat something, eat more protein, and maybe appreciate that maybe your body wasn't quite ready to be stressed like this. Okay, the trick is to feel really stable, in control, to feel like you are not triggered by lack of food in your stomach. That's important. You will have metabolic success, you will feel better, and you don't have to do it day in and day out. I mean, if you do that once a week for true fat loss, if you really want to move the needle, and you do a 20 to 24-hour fast one day a week, then the rest of the days you can eat 3 meals a day if you need to, until you heal a little more efficiently. Those of us that are seasoned fasters, those of us that feel fine in the fasted state, we have plenty of energy. I'm one of them. I've practiced this for a couple years. My body understands and is able to tap into my stored fat for fuel, and I feel pretty darn good. Now, I definitely have trained for this. I can test my glucose with my Keto Mojo, and if it is high and I'm feeling hungry or just a little bit stressed, I know it's time for me to break my fast. But depending on what's going on and depending on my ketone levels, and I know that with my Keto Mojo ketone monitor, I can just kind of decide if my ketones are high and my glucose is high, then I can decide whether I'm gonna keep going in the fasted state, maybe 1 more hour, or if I have maybe a fasted snack. And that could be like a little bit of fat. I could do maybe some nut butter or MCT in a coffee, or I do a fat supplement using phospholipids, which are super helpful and healthy. And it's funny, my blood sugar comes down a little bit and the hunger goes away. So that's something that you can, message me. I can give you a link and maybe it's something you'll want to utilize as well. And it's super good for your cells. It's phospholipids. It's a healthy fat that really regenerates cellular structure. Okay, so I talked about meal plans, and I'm gonna kind of throw out some suggestions for, meals that might be interesting to you. I love a good pesto, a homemade pesto with pine nuts and basil. I mean, the basil this time of year is incredible and plentiful, and a little bit of olive oil or avocado oil, and maybe a dash of garlic and some Parmesan cheese. You can whip that up in your blender or your food processor, and that's an amazing addition to chicken, salmon, beef. You can dip turkey strips in it. You can pour it on vegetables. It's a wonderful, wonderful flavor profile that might really kind of move the needle in satisfying your taste buds. You can do smoothies and low carb smoothies. I know I mentioned the keto chow, which is something new to me. It's a meal replacement shake with a milk isolate protein. You can add a little bit of fat to that, whether it's heavy cream, butter. Today I used MCT oil. I had the salted caramel and I added a shot of espresso to that. Super yummy. That was kind of my end of my feeding window treat to boost my protein, because I had 3 scrambled eggs for lunch and a few berries, and I felt like I needed just a little bit more at the end of my feeding window. And when I'm talking about feeding windows, I like to fashion my feeding windows in about an hour and a half, depending on what time it is. I think today I opened my feeding window at about noon, and I had about an hour and a half until I had my next client. So at 12 o'clock, I scrambled some eggs because it was time to eat. I scrambled 3 eggs in about 2 tablespoons of butter and then salt and pepper. And I ate those with a couple of strawberries, and I felt really satisfied. And about 1:10, I knew I had 20 more minutes. Well, I was busy working, and I thought I better have a snack because I have a full afternoon with clients, and I'm not wanting to be hungry or kind of antsy during that time. So I threw in the blender some ice cubes, some water, a splash of MCT oil because I'm out of heavy cream, and my package of salted caramel keto chow. And I whizzed that up, and then I tasted it, and I thought, oh, that's good, but I wonder what a little shot of caffeine, a little shot of espresso would taste like. So I whipped up my espresso machine and poured a cooled down shot of espresso in that smoothie, and yum, it was awesome. I didn't eat all of it. I have the rest of it for tomorrow because I would like to eat it later today, but I'm not going to chance the caffeine. That's not going to work. So those are things that I eat, and I wanted to share that with you. Another kind of on repeat for me is the chicken pizza recipe. I've got a video somewhere. It uses chicken for the crust, chicken and mozzarella cheese. I think there's an egg, and you can use raw chicken, you can use cooked chicken, but you want to mix those together. You don't need much cheese. The egg helps bind it, and you make a crust and you bake that off in the oven or the air fryer. And then you top it with a little bit of pizza sauce or marinara, whatever you have. You can put pepperonis, you can put olives, you can put mushrooms, and a little bit of mozzarella cheese. Again, I'm not a big dairy fan, but a little bit I can tolerate, and I don't seem to be impacted with that. Bake it back in the oven like a pizza, and that's amazing. You can also do like a 1-dish meal if you wanted to not make a pizza, more of a casserole for that. Okay, that's a fun meal. I'm always into taco bowls with, I don't use many beans, but sometimes I do add pinto beans or black beans. maybe less than a quarter cup. And I'll use cabbage and ground beef or ground turkey or ground chicken with avocado, salsa, some jalapeno. That's a wonderful staple. Also, fajitas are incredible. Fajitas are easy. You can do steak, chicken, shrimp with all of the peppers and onions. And if you need a tortilla, that's great. My go-to tortilla, if I'm not out at a Mexican restaurant, because I will eat the corn tortilla and make sure that it's only 1 or 1.5, but I'll do like a chickpea or an almond flour tortilla. I definitely maintain the carbohydrates are there, and I, can get in trouble with too many carbs, but you can try that. And it's a great substitute to really kind of tick the box of an authentic Mexican meal. You can never beat the sheet pan, oven meal with chicken or pork tenderloin or burger patties on a sheet pan with roasted vegetables. I'll mix some new potatoes, and a lot of you freak out when I say potatoes, but honestly, a few are fine. You just kind of want to make sure that you're counting the carbohydrates and understanding the impact of that, that high glycemic food. But then there's, all those veggies. There's peppers, there's onions, there's asparagus, there's zucchini right now in spades. I mean, so much zucchini, right? There's tomatoes, there's mushrooms, so many delicious vegetables to be roasted. You can eat that on a salad with a vinaigrette. You can eat that, mixed in like a taco bowl, but it's more like just a bowl. Roasted veggies with meat on top, delicious. You can put different sauces on that. You can do like a Szechuan sauce that's maybe more spicy. You could do a vinaigrette. You could do the pesto again. There's so many ways to really improve the flavor profile and get all those needs met with your taste buds. Just be creative and plan ahead, okay? Search the internet for interesting low-carb meals. I will caution you, however, that a lot of the low-carb, quote-unquote, keto meals use a lot of dairy. Dairy-heavy meals will not help you with fat loss if you're inflamed. If you're getting started on this, please limit the amount of dairy that you're eating. Cottage cheese is not your friend at this point in time. High fat is probably not the way you want to go about it. If you need a little bit of fat, that's fine, but a little bit is probably 2 tablespoons max. By eating a half a cup or more of cottage cheese by way of a sauce, maybe Alfredo or something other. I mean, I'm seeing the recipes come out with these cottage cheese recipes that I cringe. I don't think that's the way you want to go. That's too much pasteurized dairy. And if you have questions, put them down in the comments, because I want you to understand that if you're not successful by doing the quote unquote diet things, there's a reason for it. And we need answers, stat, right? I want you to succeed. So those are a few of my tips. It's time for you to get busy. If you haven't gotten your exercise today, turn this off and go do a half hour. Because half an hour goes in a flash. Yes, it's hard to get started, but you'll be blown away at how your body responds to the activity. Get your steps in. Be diligent, be compliant, be regimented. If you have chronic pain, if you have things that limit your activity, then you need to really dial in your diet, okay? And find a way to maximize the amount of fuel that you're eating so that you are maintaining lean muscle mass and not storing fat. That's important. I have tricks and tips and peptides and offerings that might be surprising to you. Okay, if you feel like you're not gaining traction, you're not having success, and you feel kind of broken, then maybe it's time to invest in yourself and schedule a jumpstart with me. I'm a functional nutritionist. I have over 15 years of experience in clinical with clients. Let me help you. You deserve to feel good. You're not getting any younger. If you had one wish, if it is to be smaller, then we can make it happen, okay? It's worth it. It's worth doing the diet. It's worth understanding how your body works. It's worth being a little bit uncomfortable so that you can succeed, because I guarantee you, if you get traction, if you start with the level of understanding that I think you need, and you start putting into place the tricks and the tips that we have for you here, you're gonna feel better. And you're not getting any younger. So maximize your time. It's time for you. Okay, thank you for listening. If it makes sense, if you're having success or you're struggling, send me a comment. I'll address it, okay? Come for the fat loss, stay for the longevity. I want you to feel younger every year and not be shackled to a body that you hate. That's no fun. All right, I'll see you next time. And in the meantime, go down to the description box. There's all kinds of products that are really impactful and might help you with your sweet tooth, with your cravings, with your supplements. It's all down there. If not, go to my website, ConnieRutledge.com, and they're spelled out for you. You can schedule your jumpstart there, and I look forward to seeing you. All right, be successful. You can do this. We'll see you next time. Bye-bye.